My good friend who joins me right now, Erin Elmore, is aggravated, and she's doing something about it with our relations between China and the USA, and she's the executive director of USA Strong. Recently wrote your op-ed on selective activism and only some lives matter. I've been saying it for a while, and I think the better hashtag is Black Votes Matter. Tell us about selective activism, Erin.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
All right.
Hey. I hate to see that you're aggravated.
Yeah.
But what I am aggravated about is the NBA. And let me just tell you, I haven't watched a minute of sports really ever in my life. I could care less about sports. But what I do care about is hypocrisy. And you see all of these NBA players going on the court wearing Black Lives Matter across their chest with stoic expressions on their faces. And the court has the words Black Lives Matter spelled out in giant letters. And the problem I have is this. We all think, right, that slavery is terrible and that everyone should be treated equally. And that to me is a point that I can get behind. Well, I'm going to go even deeper here. Black lives do matter. Black Lives Matter, Inc., by the way, the organization, they are not a charity, okay? They are not a 501c3. They are a Delaware incorporation, which is a business like Starbucks or McDonald's or the Gap. So what are they doing? Ask yourself, what are they doing to build up the community, to help African-American businesses, to help African-Americans who are out of work, to help African-American children that don't have any place to go for meals during school hours or for help with their schoolwork? So first of all, inherently, there is something wrong with Black Lives Matter, Inc., because they're not really helping Black lives to matter. Going back to the NBA, you see all these players purporting to care about human life and slavery. Well, they are deeply tied to China because of viewership and rights and sporting agreements over there and merchandising deals. But guess what's going on in China? There are literal concentration camps of a people called the Uyghurs. They are an ethnic minority, mostly Muslim, who are speaking Turkish. But these people are literally imprisoned in concentration camps, killed for their organs. The women are sterilized, forced into abortion. They are treated terribly. Their children are often sold into manufacturing slave labor. And guess what these slave laborers are making? Nike uniforms and Nike shoes that are worn by people like LeBron James in the NBA. So what do you have to say about that today, John Tabacco?
Well, Erin, you know, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. It is right up the alley of what you're talking about with selective activism. You got LeBron James making hundreds of millions of dollars, basically selling kids $200 pairs of sneakers. And at the same time, he's talking about slavery and reparations and how the African-American man has been held down. Uyghurs are being religiously persecuted in China. They're being rounded up and taken to factories. So the communist Chinese government is actually engaging in slave labor that are making the shoes that make LeBron James rich. So in my view, LeBron James is like a slave owner, if you think about it, because he's profiting from the products being made by religious persecuted slaves.
And so what bothers me is this phony, fake activism. You know, I don't think as the American people, we should sit idly by and watch this kind of behavior occur. And you know what? The only good thing I can say about it is their ratings are absolutely in the gutter, and rightfully so, because I think the American viewer is fed up with this. They realize that what these basketball players and what the National Basketball Association is doing is totally pandering. And honestly, I'm going to use a real clever word here, baloney.
One of my favorites when I was a kid, a little bologna sandwich. But I'm glad you used that word instead of the alternative. Thank you for that. Erin, isn't it also selective activism, you know, when a guy like George Floyd, and nobody wants to see a person killed by a cop, okay? I'm putting that on the record, right? But a guy with multiple felonies, he kidnapped a woman at knife point. The guy did not have a stellar record. Now the tapes came out yesterday. You see how he was asking not to be put in a car. I'm not justifying the guy's treatment of him, but here in New York, we had a 1-year-old kid shot African-American kid. And Reverend Al Sharpton's not at his funeral. The kid's not in a gold casket, and there's no $14 million GoFundMe page for the 1-year-old black kid. How come, it's only black lives who are alleged to be hurt or abused by cops? That's, and that's really what they should call it.
There's so many ways to address this, but the one thing, everyone, Democrat, Republican, Independent, American, Canadian, Mexican, everyone in the world agreed that what happened to George Floyd shouldn't have happened. And what that cop did by sitting on his neck shouldn't have happened. This was an issue that everyone agreed upon. Everyone agreed upon it. But every black life has to matter. What about these abortion clinics that are often in African American impoverished neighborhoods that are forcing the abortion and allowing, rather, the abortion of several black babies? Do those black lives matter? I think all of these black lives have to matter.
Yeah, and I was joking around before, kind of, but, it's true. Most of these cities where we're seeing these, riots and protests, they're all run by blue mayors. Many of the states are blue states, like New York, like Oregon, like, all these places. Right, Philly. So at the same time, most of those same cities, I don't know if you remember last year or a year and a half ago, Trump said that Baltimore was a rat-infested city, and he took a beating. I did a little research, and Orkin, the pest company, had the top 10 rattiest cities in America. A rodent company, and they were all they were New York, Baltimore, San Francisco, right? The same blue cities were the rattiest cities, the most rodent infested, and the same ones hit worse by COVID, worse schools, worse hospitals. So those Democratic politicians come in every 4 years for their votes, but they haven't done one thing to change the people's way of life. So, I thought a good alternative would be all black votes matter, not black lives matter, black votes, because that's really all these career politicians are out there for, is the black vote.
Absolutely, and it's truly sad. I saw something on Fox News the other day that said shootings, I believe, in Philadelphia, just by way of reference, because that's where I'm from, are up 56%. And I believe shootings in New York City from the same time last year were up something like 74%. Those are both bastions of democracy, in quotation marks. Right. Democrats, rather. And they're destroying these large cities. I, today, put my condo on the market because I don't want to live in this kind of world any longer with such fear and people that don't want to have police. And I want to live somewhere safe, secure, and protected, where the police do protect me and that the community is safe. And we don't have police-free zones and autonomous zones and encampments. And one of the nicest areas in Philly, there's a homeless encampment right now with people defecating on the street.
Horrible.
This is not acceptable.
No, it isn't. And you know what? We're both rooting for the president big time. I know that. I know you're doing everything you can as the executive director of USA Strong to remind Americans that we got to continue to fight the Chinese communist regime. And I know you guys are non-political, non-partisan. You're just trying to keep awareness out there about, what our relations need to be with China and how dangerous they are to us. But I think the one focused message that the president's team should really zero in on is what you just said. People, women primarily, right? They want to feel safe. People, parents, they want their kids to be safe. So I think the president, the riots might be working in his favor for one side because he can point at them and say, that's what you got coming. But I think people overall that I'm talking to, and predominantly women that are supposedly hating Trump, want him in there because they believe he'll keep us safe.
I was going to add to that point, and I agree with you completely. Do you think that the average suburban mother doesn't want her child to go back to school in the fall? Do you think the average suburban mother wants to defund the police? I would think that these Democrats would think out their strategy a little more thoroughly, because these moms are going to vote Trump, because otherwise they're going to have children that have absolutely no education, a mother that has to start drinking wine at noon, and these kids that know nothing and have no police in their communities. No one wants that.
And then also take a look at, the manifesto that Joe Biden signed on to. We could have no schools, no police, no trains, planes, or automobiles either. We could just be a prehistoric nation again.